here at the back. But maybe we could put that, if that's all right, I'm going to put this on. Sorry. All right.
Is that better? Everyone can hear? Operation table.
This is your Michael Jackson.
Good, good. Thank you. Ready for war? My aim and what I want to do this morning is to bring you 7 pictures, 7 word pictures of Jesus. So we're going to focus on him from 3 different parables that carry the same message, and that's coming out of Luke 15, a passage that we all know very well. So if we can have slide number 1 on the board, and then we will see only the first 2 verses. This is a gathering of the Pharisees and the Scribes. They were unhappy because Jesus was mingling with the sinners and the tax collectors. Because they, the sinners, tax collectors, have this habit to come and listen to Jesus. And in terms of the Pharisees, belief or unbelief, or anyone to call that, because it's definitely not a belief, they didn't like the fact that Jesus speak to these people. He's receiving these people and he's eating with them. And the rest of this chapter is everything about Jesus responding to what the Pharisees here are grumbling about. There's 3 parables in this chapter. All of us know actually this chapter very well. It's the parable about the lost sheep, the lost coin, and the lost son, or as we call it, the prodigal son. But in these answers, these responses, Jesus is focusing on his own heart. He's pointing out what is in his heart in terms of his thoughts, his emotions, his words, his behavior. And that is going to be the 7 pictures that we will focus on. Because it's very important that we know that we talk about lost people, wandering off people, children that perhaps know the Lord, then wander off. That's one of the focuses of these 3 parables. But the main point, and I personally think it's wrong to call it the lost sheep, the lost coin, the prodigal son. The focus in this whole chapter, from verse 1, is actually on Jesus. And Jesus is making the opportunity work for him so that he can convey to the people hearing him, the Pharisees and the Scribes, but also the sinners and the tax collectors that are there, and also his disciples. And also his disciples here to know today that we also can start to know what is really inside. And this is one of the scriptures, the very few scriptures that Jesus actually reveals. Other times he's doing it in terms of a deed, he's healing someone, or he feels sorry for someone. But here he is sort of doing, look at me, look at my heart, so that you can see who I am and what I'm doing. So we've got the parable of the lost sheep, parable of the lost coin, and the parable of the lost son, the prodigal son. Now in this part of the prodigal son, we all know what happened to that son, all the sins that he went into, and rejecting his father, and want money, half of the estate, and the reckless living he went into, and the famine, and he had to look after pigs, and at the end he came to himself, came to his senses, and he decided, I'm going to tell my father, I will go back, I will go and tell him that I sinned against him and against heaven, and that I'm not worthy. So we know that part as well. And that's not the focus for me today. The focus is going to be on Jesus' response. So I want you, while I'm doing these 7 pictures, to look at him, to look at Jesus, to consider Jesus, to know Jesus, to learn who and what this Jesus is really. The one that you say you love, the one that you say you belong to. So this 7 pictures is aiming to use this story Jesus told about the Father and the Son, using those Father images so that we can learn more about God and perhaps more about ourselves. So our focus will be definitely on that. So if we can put slide number 2 on the board, and then we'll start to go into these 7 pictures. Now, okay, we've got all 7 there together, but we will go through them one by one. So I give you a bit of time just to look at all 7 of them before we concentrate on one of them at a time. Here is this Father, the story that Jesus told, and what he's saying first of all, this Father saw. He saw this child. It's almost if Jesus is saying, I am waiting, I'm on the lookout, I'm expecting. I think in the long distance, if I can look down the road, I think I see someone that I recognize. He's far off, but he identified him, and he's identifying you. He's identifying every lost person, everyone that's not with him at the moment. And my question will be, is it you that he's looking at? Is it your child that's not with the Lord perhaps? One that you're praying for a long time? A family member? Maybe your own brother that lost the plot, lost the way? Whoever it is, Jesus is not too busy to look down the road. Maybe he come to his senses and coming back. This is the kind of Jesus. He wants to look down the road. He's longing to see if you come back. He's longing to see if what you were involved in last week, if you turned away from that, come back to him. His affairs, God's affairs, are always in place. He's free to look down the road to prodigal sons, to alienated children that are not with him anymore, that lost the plot and lost their... This kind of Jesus always sees. But there's a second one. If you can go to number 2 on the board there, you'll see he felt compassion. Now that is... I feel compassion sometimes for people that's in bad situations, because I see life dealt them a terrible blow. But in these circumstances, Jesus is explaining in the story that he felt compassion towards a son, his own, that did what? Compassion for one that's rejecting him as father. Compassion for the one that says, I want half of the estate, I want to disappear. Makes it to money and went to other country. Spend it recklessly in parties and prostitutes and end up with it. This is what Jesus is telling. He knows the whole history of this son. Of course he knows. He's God. But he's sensitive. He felt sorry. He got empathy for the situation, regardless how bad that situation is. He has compassion on people that's turning away from him. Look what he did with Peter. Peter denied him 3 times. But he said to Peter, I will pray for you. And when you come to your senses, if you can use those words from Luke 15, if you come to yourself, then do my work. And the third point here, this Jesus is explaining his heart in terms of the following pictures. This picture of a running father. Now imagine this, just picture this. A running middle-aged owner of a big estate with many servants, quite a profile type of picture that Jesus paints for us. He's running towards this son. And I'm not going to repeat the history of the son again, but he's willing to do that. Even the son rejected him. He's running towards them. Jesus is not keeping us at an arm's length distance. He is like a physical father that wants to embrace and kiss. Jesus did not have to include these emotional laden words in the story of peace. It was not necessary for him. But he did. He did. He wants you to realize, and I want us to realize, and every sinner, any lost people, all the people that's, I came to the Lord Jesus when I was 15 or 25 or whatever, but where are you now? Jesus is also looking toward that people and running towards them because he wants them to turn around like the son, like the prodigal son. And we know that the prodigal son at that stage, when he met the father, after he embraced and kissed, said, Father, I sinned against you, against heaven, and I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy to be your child anymore. German theologian Bonhoeffer once wrote, God loved, and it's so applicable for me in this sense, God loved the lost, the excluded, the unworthy. The son said, I'm not worthy anymore. The weak and the broken. And that is why Jesus is putting in these pictures. He wants you to see him like this. You want him to see his heart like this. And now the next 4 pictures is very interesting because now there's action. Quickly, Jesus said, quickly, turning to his servants. The man says, not Jesus, Jesus telling a story. But that's exactly the same. Jesus has got angels looking over us, looking for us, especially to children. And Jesus actually saying, quickly, bring clothes for my son. But bring the best clothes you have. And don't give it to him, you put it on for him. Then you bring a ring. I could imagine in those days, most probably the type of story will include like a family ring to symbolize you part of me again. You part of my family. And bring shoes for his feet. So this Jesus is welcoming, if you turn around, is welcoming you back to say, you're part of the family, you're part of me. I'm not ashamed that you are mine. If you turn to me, I change you. And then the story says, they killed the fattened calf so that they can have, so that they can eat and celebrate. Eat and celebrate. What was the first 2 verses in the beginning of the context? Pharisees were unhappy. He's receiving and eating with them. He's repeating the words now here for the Pharisees and the Scribes to tell them, yes, I want to eat with them. I want to celebrate if they come to me with a humble, repentant heart. And that was difficult for the Pharisees to understand these things because they did not recognize Jesus. That's why they did not understand anything. And even concepts like grace for a guy like Martin Luther was a very difficult concept to understand. And Martin Luther once said, because he didn't understand and was grappling with grace at the stage in his life, he said, if I only could believe that God is not angry with me, I would stand on my head for joy. And isn't it true? We can stand on our heads for joy while we look at these 7 pictures. Because this is who Jesus is. This is what he is like. And now, in the 6th point, Jesus and this man in the story is coming to the point where he's making a declaration. He's making a declaration so that the son can know, so that the servants can know, so that all that's around can know. This is my son. I'm doing this thing because he was dead. No two ways about that. He was dead in his sins. But now, after God drawing, after God, this man in the story ran to him, he repented, so now you are alive. Then Jesus made you alive. So if you are dead, if your son or your child, your family member is in that position, this is what Jesus wants to do. If you are praying for family members, and I know many of us are doing it for family members, even for our own children, and even sometimes for a father or mother that's still alive. We can do that because Jesus wants to make them alive. He wants to do that. And on the very last point of these pictures, Jesus wants to end it in uncertain terms. They began to celebrate. They began to do what Jesus said he wants to do, what this man in the story said he wants to do. They really want to celebrate with this kind of hard attitude of Jesus towards all sinners. So these 7 pictures is about Jesus revealing his heart to love, to lost ones, to people that's not with him anymore. So I want you to, in my conclusion, to look at him, to look at these pictures, look at him. Behold this beauty of Jesus. Consider this compassion of Jesus. Come and find forgiveness from this Jesus. Saturate your soul with the softness in this Jesus. Think about all these truths we saw in these pictures of Jesus. Think about them. You can experience him. You can even experience him here, right now. So my appeal to you is watch him. Listen to him. Stand in awe of him. Be overwhelmed by this Jesus. My hope is that these 7 pictures will not only be in your memory, but that it will be in your thoughts, in your prayers, in your words, in your everyday behavior. And these 7 word pictures of Jesus, he's saying in Matthew 24 something about his words. And that's true about these 7 I just explained. He says, heaven and earth will pass away, but my words, including this 7 word pictures we just talked about, they will never